All right, today I am here with Grant Crockett over his house. Grant's recently returned from the Paris, France mission, right?
That's right.
And he did some interesting things on the mission, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, let's kind of introduce Grant. So, Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you've lived as you've grown up, because it's been a few places, and kind of the time frames you lived there, and then I'll have a few questions.
Yeah, sure, of course. So, hi everyone. My name is Grant Crockett. I'm in the Crockett family, and for me, so I was born in South Central Nebraska, just a small town called Kearney, and I grew up there for 14 years. And then when I was about 14, right, I moved out here and I lived here for 5, and then I was in Logan, Utah, just doing school up at Utah State, and then I left for my mission. And I went to the France-Paris mission, so it was very good.
All right, so tell us, what was it like? What was it like growing up in Nebraska?
It was very nice, honestly. You know, the people were super kind. I know Nebraska has a stereotype of, you know, not like too much happening out there. You know, it's kind of flat and like boring and stuff, but honestly, the people there are just so great, and I personally found like a lot of fun things to do, and the people there are like just the nicest people ever. Like seriously, much like the people here in San Diego, right? And so, yeah. But I personally loved it. I thought it was really, really great.
What did you do for fun in Nebraska? What were some of the childhood things you like that you have memories of?
I like to go bowling with friends and just kind of have like friends over. You know, we'd hang out, we'd play video games, we'd play with Legos, we'd do stuff like that, which was pretty fun, you know. And so
all right,
yeah.
so we might have some primary kids listening. So let me ask you some favorite questions. So
Yeah.
favorite cartoon growing up was?
Oh, that's a really good question. The Backyardigans.
Okay, that's a pretty good one. Okay. How about favorite toy to play with?
Ooh,
Was it Legos?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Lego set or a Lego theme you like playing?
Ooh, I like playing the Star Wars theme. I think it's really good. Yeah.
All right. Star Wars or Harry Potter?
Oh. Star Wars.
All right. What's your favorite episode of Star Wars?
Episode 3.
Oh, that's an interesting take. All right.
Yeah.
What's your feelings on the Clone Wars show?
I like it. I thought that that season 7, I believe, was the last one, right? I thought season 7 was super good. Yeah, I liked all the episodes in there. I thought it was just very well done, and yeah, it's a very complex show, but it's very interesting with all the different character arcs and the way that the people grow. You know, and it was a very interesting, interesting galactical affair, if you will.
I would ask you your feelings about Disney acquiring Lucas, but that might lead to a long conversation. So
Probably.
now one of the interesting things people might not know about you is you actually wrote a book.
Oh yeah,
Tell us about it.
I did. Well, yeah. So when I was, I think, 12 years old, I wrote this book called, it's called The 12 Rings. Wow, I almost forgot it. Wow. Yeah, but it's basically just like an old, it's just kind of a sci-fi fantasy thing, you know, about magical kids who have powers, and they have to find each other and, you know, like accomplish different quests and stuff. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I was writing that when I was living out in Nebraska, and then I published it there. And then I moved out here, and I had plans to write more, but I just, you know, I kind of got occupied with school and other stuff. But I do have plans to return to it at some point.
Great. You moved here to California. What was that transition like moving to California?
Man, it's a really good question. It's kind of hard to remember, but honestly, I just remember coming into the ward and just feeling like so much like warmth and love and just very welcome, you know. And so I remember that very well. I thought that was super good. I started to, I went to the middle school here in Roger Row, and I was just playing some sports. I was I was doing football, and just football, and I was just kind of getting used to that, and that kind of launched me into my mini football career in high school. I played the first 2 years, and then after that, I went into drama. I became a bit of a theater geek and absolutely loved that. I thought that was really fun. I did that junior and senior year and did about 4 productions in high school. So it was good, though. It was super good. I loved it.
That's
really
great.
Fun, yeah.
So what subjects did you like in high school, junior high, whatever, and what did you not like?
So in high school and junior high, I really liked humanities stuff. I liked history. I liked English. Science I thought was okay, but math I didn't like very much, which is something that I'm actually just now kind of like returning to see if I've like if my brain has developed and if I'm and if I can like relearn it, which weirdly I've been doing pretty good according to Khan Academy. So
all right,
that's
good
nice.
job.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job. So then, before I forget, tell me your favorite young men's camp out or activity or whatever that we did.
I remember the one that we had in like southern Utah where we met Buck Doyle and like we stayed at a ranch. I believe the Alexander family owns.
Red Cloud Ranch. Yeah,
yes, Red Cloud Ranch.
Yeah, the Alexander's Ranch. Yep.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it to death. I thought that was so fun.
What'd you think of Buck Doyle?
He was awesome.
Why?
He was just he
Tell us the story. Come on.
Well, so Buck Doyle, I remember we were out shooting as a bunch of young men and stuff, right? And so we had 2 different rifles, and like I got to shoot both of them, and one of them was kind of big. And I don't mean that in terms of caliber, I just mean that in terms of size.
Right. It was a big sniper rifle.
Well,
distant sniper.
There was that one, and that one was awesome. But then there were 2 others. I think that they were both shooting 223 or 556 NATO, and so like not a lot of recoil. But one of them was just hard for me to hold, and so I tried to shoot it, and I just didn't hit anything. And I was like, okay. But then I went over to the rifle that Buck Doyle was having us shoot, and it was a little smaller. And so I picked it up and I hit everything. And he's like, "Hey man, right there." And I gave him a fist bump, and I was like, nice. And I just felt so cool, because yeah, Buck Doyle has an incredible story, and so I like he's a very cool guy. I love him.
That's an interview for another day, which we would love to get. That'd be fun. All right, so then after high school, you went to Utah State for a little bit, right? You studied there?
Yeah.
And what were you studying while you were there?
While I was there, I was a history major with a Chinese minor.
And you're planning to go back to school in the next few months. Do you got any plans on what specifically you're going to major in or career ambitions?
So right now, yesterday I just applied to Utah Valley. And I'm gonna try and go into the aviation program actually, and so and so that's kind of my plans there. Just go into flight school and hopefully become a commercial pilot.
That'd be great. All right, so let's talk about your mission now. So tell us your mission. Tell us about your mission call and getting ready for your mission.
So I put my papers in. I received my call and I opened it and I just went wild. Because I was assigned to labor in the France-Paris mission, but I would prepare to preach the gospel in the Mandarin Chinese language, I was just ecstatic. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so in order to prepare for that, I was just studying a lot of French, a lot of Chinese, just trying to like get it down and stuff. And it was fun. It was really fun. It was really interesting.
Which language did you study in the MTC?
I studied French. I studied French there.
And so what did you do to pick up Chinese? Well, actually, let me ask this question. Did you actually wind up speaking? I know you had a little bit of Chinese. Did you speak Chinese a lot on your mission?
Honestly, not really. I only spoke it for about 6 months, actually. Well, and I mean, six months is still a very long time. It's like 1/4, right? But like for but I just kind of studied it for like. I just practiced speaking it for 6 months, and for some reason my mission was mostly in the French language. Yeah, and so it was very cool though. It was a very interesting 6 months. I got to see a whole new culture within a whole new culture, and I got to see how people lived and kind of what their perception and what their understanding of God was, which is very different from our own, and it was cool. It was really cool, really loved it.
Geographically,
Yeah.
Is the Chinese population in France centered around Paris, or where is it geographically?
That's a really good question. So, I mean, I think that, obviously there are various numbers like throughout France, right? And I would say like they tend to gravitate more towards the big cities. The sector itself was in Paris because that's where I'd say like the biggest pocket of them were, and that was the place where it was like the most plausible to really have like a Chinese branch or like trying to do the work there, because I believe about like 500,000 of them like live in Paris, just down. There are like 3 different Chinatowns. So there's one that's in the 3rd district, I think, or maybe it's the 1st. And then another one in the 13th, and then another one up in the 20th. And so they're just kind of like spread out around Paris, and they're just in those like, yeah. And so,
what's the reception of Chinese members to the gospel, especially over there in France?
Yeah, so in terms of our Chinese members, within the ward itself, we had 3 members, and they were all very strong and, very, they felt very good about the faith. They're like, hey, we're here, we're doing this. This is what this is. It's like, it's super good. In terms of the rest of the population, like, generally speaking, what I would say I found a lot of were like people who, they weren't necessarily against God, but they just didn't necessarily know him, if that makes sense. So they were like a lot of immigrants, especially. Like, they come from China, they don't teach about religion there, they don't want people to really have a faith. The government in general, I think, wants people to kind of focus more on them in terms of being loyal and stuff. And so the Chinese, anytime we were like talking to them about God, I remember one guy said like, yeah, so for me, like we don't really have a God over there in China. For us, God is like the state. And so we would really have to go, we would spend entire lessons just going like principle by principle, like this is who God is, this is what we think. And, and like we would just have to kind of start there with them and see, what they would like think and how they'd feel about it. And they'd be like, okay. But then there were also, there was still like a small minority of like Chinese Christians who were very receptive and very interested to like meet and talk more and like all kinds of stuff, which was very nice.
That's cool. Why don't we take a small step back and tell us what areas you served in your mission, and maybe describe where that is geographically within France.
Yeah. So to start, the France-Paris mission has 3 different countries in it. So it has the northern half of France, it has Luxembourg, and then it has Wallonie or Wallonia, and that is the southern part of Belgium, basically, and that's the French-speaking part. So when I got there, before I actually got there, I served in the Michigan-Detroit mission. And I spent 3 months in Cleveland, Ohio, and then 6 weeks in Monroe, Michigan. And then after that, I went to Liège, Belgium, which is like way up. It's kind of in like southeastern Belgium. It's the most like eastern part of Wallonie, and it was an awesome city. It was like super cool. And there's actually a big history of the church there, because John Browning, he built 3 chapels there. And at one point the city had like 1,000 members, but now it's only down to like 100. But still, it's like it was probably my favorite sector out of all of them. And then after that, I went to a place called Melun, France, and that's spelled Melun, not to confuse it with Milan, which a lot of French speakers did, because I know how to pronounce Milan in French, but it's like Melun or like something like that. And so whenever I'd clarify, it's just like south of Paris, they're like, oh yeah. And so it was about 45 minutes south, like southeast of Paris. And then after that, I went way out to Brittany, and I served in a city called Lorient, which is super nice. And then I went to Paris for the Chinese sector, and after that, I went to a small town in northern France called Saint-Omer, but we didn't have an apartment there, so I lived in a place called Dunkirk. Yeah, which some people might be familiar with. If
we're a little familiar with it, yeah.
Yeah. Some miracles up there, and then after that, and I was in to clarify the time frame. So Liège, Milan, and Lorient were all in 6 weeks, and then Paris was 6 months, and Saint-Omer was 6 months, and then I finished in Namur, Belgium, which was 3 months, and that was right next to Liège, and I loved Namur too. It was beautiful, it was very nice.
So, like World Cup, you cheering for Belgium or France?
I'm gonna have to go for Belgium.
All right. The
French is so great.
Tell us about eating in Paris and France. I would imagine you had amazing food, great food. What were some of your favorite things to eat?
Honestly, I loved the kinds of things that people would cook for us, because it was so different and delicious, and it'd just be these family recipes that have been in for 1,000 years or something, or 1,000 years, but
maybe 100.
Yeah, just 100 years. This is my great grandmother's vegetable soup, and you try and you're like, wow, this is really good. So P
days, were you going to a lot of historical things, or what would you do on P days?
Depending on the area, we would go and we check out historical things and stuff. Yeah, and then there were there's not as many of them in Belgium really, but over in France there were a ton of boulangeries or bakeries, just with the best croissants and stuff, and we would stop there and we'd grab things from there, and they were super good. Yeah, I loved it to death. And so but then Belgium had what's called friteries, which are places for fries. They are in love with their fries,
French fries.
Yeah, French fries.
Belgian fries.
Belgian fries, yeah. I think fries actually originated from Belgium, I think. Could also be wrong.
We need to Wikipedia that after.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Either way, though, they perfected them. They're very good, very delicious.
Did they put anything on them?
You can choose different sauces and stuff. Sometimes you can get what's called a mitraillette, which is it's like a baguette with a bunch of meat in it, and then they just put fries on top, and they dip it in cheese or something.
Sounds like a California burrito.
Yeah.
But French style.
Right.
Belgian style. That's cool. Yeah. Any food over there you totally disliked? Sounds like a no. You're okay with it.
Yeah, I was honestly pretty good with everything.
So tell us about teaching people. Was it easy to find people to teach, or how would you go about finding individuals and families to teach?
That's a really good question. So generally with the way that they've been raised and with the way that they've come up, and I'm kind of speaking about just the native French and Belgian populations. In general, with the way that they're raised and stuff, it doesn't seem like they're the most receptive in the world. They're not one to really kind of want to talk about religion. Our main teaching pool were Christian immigrants, basically, because even the French Christians, we would get people who would say oh, I'm Catholic, and then we were talking to I'll never forget we were talking to this one girl, and she's like, well, I'm Catholic, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean? And I was just like, okay. And so, but a lot of Christian immigrants who just came from everywhere. I would say that was our main teaching pool, and I absolutely loved those guys because they were very receptive and they were very humble because they had come from, oh my goodness, some of the stories just blew me away. Oh my gosh, there was this one guy, I'll never forget him. He was amazing, and his name was, well, I probably shouldn't give his name actually, but he was this Kurdish guy, and he was out in Turkey, and then he kind of traveled through northern Africa, and he came in through Tunisia. And he came up, and he was in Namur, Belgium, and we found him, and we're like, hey man, what's up? And he spoke mainly English actually, but we were teaching him, and we were trying to teach him the gospel and French. So yeah, but it was super cool, you know, and it was nice just to meet him because he had such strong faith, and I admired it, you know. His story was just amazing. He said that he had this dream where where Heavenly Father like approached him and he said like, listen, you're my son, like, and I love you, and I want to bring you here, so like, look, just go and like wait, just like wait like in this town. And like he did, and he was able to get like papers through and everything, and he got up and he was just like, it's such a miracle. And he was like a strong convert. And then there was another guy too who's from Syria, and he was also Christian, and he was very strong. Like, I remember just seeing him, I'm like, wow, this guy looks strong. And like I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, man, like it was like growing up I had to be like very, very strong, because like most people were like very nice to me, like down there, but there were some very mean people there that I had to, you know, be sure to like stick up against. And I was like, okay, wow. And like just meeting those kinds of people, it's just admirable. It's something to aspire to, and it's something just to love. And like they were very receptive and just very kind people, and I loved them.
Were a lot of baptisms refugees or immigrants?
Yeah. The vast majority of our baptisms, I would say, came from Africa, actually.
Did they integrate well with the wards?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the wards in France are like, I think that they're predominantly like generational, like native French families, like French families whose parents like converted in like 1800, and then they've kind of been with it. And then like African immigrants, you know, and a lot of them have also kind of been in France for
a generation or so now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like a generation or two.
What's your funniest story from your mission?
Okay. That's a really good question. Okay. So one time we were walking in Nimmer, and I'll never forget how confident this guy was. Because, like, I was with me and my companion. And, you know, he was going home in one transfer and I was going home in two. But his French was phenomenal, and, like, he was just great. And, like, the two of us were, like, walking, and this homeless guy stops us. And something very interesting about the homeless is that, like, we don't know why this was, but, like, their English was really, really good. Yeah, like every time, like a guy'd come up, be like, missionaries, hey, what's up, man? And he'd just talk to you, and you know, you just kind of be like, wow, like your English is phenomenal. And like we don't know how they learned it, but so he's speaking to us, and he's like, hey guys, can I like talk to you? And we're like, yeah, what's up? And so, you know, we kind of like we sort of walked off, and like we just kind of like we stood sort of under this like bank and stuff, and we're like, what's up, man? He's like, I am the Christ. And we were just like, wow, that's great. That's awesome. And he's like, yeah, man, I am the Christ. And like, I went to this cathedral and I was praying to God, and he said this to me, and the doors just swung open. And you know what happened? Somebody called the cops on me, and they said that I broke in. And guys, I didn't do it. And we're just like, oh, okay. And so and so after that, like, we said, like, hey, man, we'll go, we'll try and talk to, like, the local soup kitchen and see if we can, like, help you or anything. We love you. And he's like, okay, thanks. And then he walked off, and sadly, we never saw him after that. But we were just, like, we just thought it was very interesting. It's kind of a very funny story. We're like, okay.
I love that one.
Still a nice guy.
That's good. So tell us maybe a miracle or a favorite experience in your mission, favorite teaching experience, favorite baptism.
It's really, man, one miracle, one teaching experience. I think probably, so when I was in Nimmer, Belgium, that same companion and I, we approached this guy who's just kind of sitting there on the bench, and we were talking to him, and his name was Jackson, and I believe he was from the DRC, and we were just kind of talking to him a little bit, and like we just, sort of like told him who we were, told him our purpose, and he was like super nice and stuff. And he just like ended up like crying at the end because he said, guys, like I've done some things that I feel like have separated me like a lot from God, but you guys coming up to me like really touched me today, And when I left, we were still teaching him, and the guy who's there now, he just kind of said like, hey, he's like really progressing, so it's awesome. And so
That's great.
It was really awesome. It was great just to meet him and just to have that experience, So
What did you learn about yourself on your mission?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, I learned that, I am an imperfect person, like certainly. But I also learned that that's okay because we have our Savior,
How did your experience on your mission change you?
I felt like I got to be taught a lot by Jesus Christ. I felt like he showed me things that I wasn't prepared for, but I'm very glad that he did. Because there were a lot of wake-up calls where I was like, oh, wow, okay, so like this is what this means, and this is what, this is about, and like I'm very grateful for the atonement. I'm very grateful for the knowledge that he revealed to me, and so I feel like I've come home with like with a refined strength, if you will, like in our Savior. Like I'm very grateful for him.
I love hearing that. I feel like ending on that, but I got one more question I was just thinking of.
Yeah.
How are you a better Christian now?
That's a good question. And without sounding, I feel like that would sound all like prideful and stuff. I think what it is I kind of like what my mom taught today in Sunday's class. It's the difference between, kind of going through the motions and actually finding the why, and like actually having like a conversion and like striving to be consecrated, which was something that I learned as a missionary. Is like you can't necessarily achieve like consecration in this life, but you can because the definition of consecration means like being perfected, and nobody's really perfect here, but when you're striving for that, when you're trying for that, that's when you're consecrated at this level on earth. That's about as consecrated as you can be, but just trying to be more consecrated, because I've made like mistakes and stuff, but that doesn't mean that I'm a mistake or that anyone is a mistake, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that's great. I love listening to everything that you've shared with us today, Grant. Is there anything you want to make sure and say or share, or do we cover it all?
I'd probably just say that, Christ is our Savior, and I'm very grateful for him. I'm very grateful for the Book of Mormon and for the prophet Joseph Smith and for all the things that we can learn here and that we can grow by.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, and thank you for making some time to visit today, Grant.
Hey, thank you so much for stopping by.